So boys, as I always tell you, I love the smell of whiskey in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, any time of day. Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man at your services. How are you all? Hope you're all doing very, very well. And cheers, one and all. If you've got a bevy, get it now. And have a imbibage alongside Kilt-Man. Cheers. So as the title suggests, I have just rediscovered Apocalypse Now. I know Apocalypse Now very, very well. I saw it back in the day. I saw it cinematically. I got it at home video. I had every possible home video version you could have got of this movie. And throughout my teens, I really sucked on the marrow and the madness of Colonel Kurtz and the kaleidoscopic surreal view of the Vietnam War as told through Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, sieved through the perceptions of Francis Ford Coppola and of course John Milius and of course Marlon Brando. More on that later. And I loved it, lapped it up. I could quote the movie incessantly. I bedecked myself in Vietnam garb throughout my early teens, wore dog tags and, quoted the movie and thought, yeah, I was Captain Willard on a mission behind enemy lines. It's funny because it's not a film which is gung-ho. It's not a film which is full of heroism and action. It's a meditation on morality and immorality, of the baton change of empire. Rudyard Kipling said that America would take the baton from Great Britain to become, the big industrious empire builder around the world, which of course it did try to be, and failed in Vietnam, as did the French. As everybody has failed in Vietnam, everybody. But that stewing, melting pot of crazy ideas of a counterculture society being plunged into literally, chaos and conflict in a country they'd never heard of, against an enemy they couldn't possibly even comprehend, a breeding ground for special forces, like Northern Ireland for Great Britain and the UK's forces. You kept it going for so long, not just for political reasons, it was also the perfect training ground for covert operations and special forces. Vietnam was that in spades. Now, as I say, I'm rediscovering Apocalypse Now. A film I know so well, so how am I rediscovering it? Well, I'll tell you. In 2001, when the Redux version came out, Francis Ford Coppola, of course, we know that the film has such a troubled, turbulent, strife-ridden production history, went on forever and ever in the Philippines, was plagued by storms, civil war. Your leading man had a near-fatal heart attack. Your director and co-writer, Francis Ford Coppola, had stress-induced epileptic seizures. God, it was doomed. His film came together only in the editing room. The magnificence of the film belies the strife that it took to get it made. Now, when the Redux version came out, and it went on to way over 3 hours, and all of a sudden we met the French plantation owners, and wow, did that bog things down. Wow, did that slow the inexorable majesty of the theatrical cut. And we'll talk about the individual cuts throughout this. Didn't half slow it down. And then extra R&R with the Playboy Playmates for our heroes. What? It was just, what? It didn't make any sense. For a film which, very like John Carpenter's The Thing, is a male-centric, male-oriented sort of drama and narrative, to have women and to have relations with them throughout the movie, it doesn't work. It actually takes you out of the real mesmeric thrust of the film itself. And so a lot of people always say that the theatrical cut is the best, and I'm kind of inclined to agree with that to a point, he says, pointing. I'm one of those that every deleted scene, including, you know, Dennis Hopper's death scene and Scott Glenn's suicide scene, I want to see everything. I want to see it all. They don't fit. They don't fit, and it's best to leave these things alone. The likes of Ridley Scott, George Lucas, and many others who cannot stop meddling with their films, going back in and doing new versions and different cuts. Well, Coppola fell for that as well. So with the Redux, he didn't put everything back in. Christ, it was a 6-hour-long movie, and most of it was incoherent and made no sense whatsoever. But he put back a hell of a lot in, and so you got all these asides, and then for the film's 40th anniversary in 2019, he went back in again for a glorious new restoration, and which is sitting just there, and recut it again and took some bits out but kept other bits in. So the version, which is called the final cut, which is what I have rediscovered it upon for the first time, I have to say, is the version I'm going to perhaps dwell upon a bit more. And that was my rediscovery. It's a shorter version than the Redux, but it's much longer than the theatrical cut. What it does, it retains the entirety of the French plantation sequence. It has all of that, and I've learnt, I think this time, this viewing, to appreciate that sequence a lot more than I ever did before. I kind of get it now. I kind of get it. It does jettison the R&R for our boys with the Playboy Playmates, which I think is a damn good idea. I mean, the chances of them hooking up with the Playmates after the debacle of their performance in front of the troops and the Marines, you know, and you paratroopers, that was just stupid and unnecessary, as so much is. But I do love the huge, not huge, but an expanded sequence and narrative sort of direction where they steal Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore's surfboard. Robert Duvall, the surfing air cavalry Lieutenant Colonel. They steal his surfboard and make a getaway, and then Kilgore actually sends his helicopters after them with a radio mantra, you know, I love that board, I want that board back, listen Lance, you know, no offence, I'm not going to shoot you, I'm not going to kill you, I'm making words up here, but, you know, I just want the board back, I like that board. I love that, because it actually gives more personality to our main boy, Martin Sheen's Captain Willard, who is tasked with going way up the Nung River, which is the Mekong Delta, which is one of the, I think this is the 12th largest river in the world, and it runs, as I think he says, it's like a main system running through the entire Vietnam War, plugged straight into Kurtz and leading him inexorably up the river towards final fate and destiny with the clearly insane Colonel Kurtz. But these little tangents that the longer versions go off on actually sort of work like a river cruise, which is what the film is. You know, it's a bunch of men on a boat having episodic adventures and set piece scenarios and dying along the way and learning to come to terms with who and what they are, and not the point of the Vietnam War, which was a lie, of course, the Tonkin incident, you know, what North Vietnamese patrol boats fired on US ships. They did once, but they didn't the second time, and it's the second time that launched massive more American involvement in Vietnam. We could talk forever about this. We could talk forever about it. But history repeats itself. Do we not recall going to war over weapons of mass destruction which weren't there and never were there and did not exist? We We learn nothing from history, nothing. You repeat it all the time. So, but the film, the longer versions of the movie have these little, they go off on little tangents like tributaries, like other little deltas and other little offshoots of the big main river. And they have these little stop-offs and learn more about themselves, we learn more about the peculiar madness of the Vietnam War, which is unique in any conflict. The youngest age, 19, 19. The atrocities that they witnessed, the atrocities that they committed, the complete and utter breakdown of command. The vast majority of troops who were over there didn't see any conflict or combat service at all. They were just having a ball, having a whale of a time. But the ones who did would encounter all sorts of horrible things in the jungle. Nasty traps, insects, bugs, snakes, terrible things. And with a really disastrous chain of command in certain campaigns, not all. Let me stress this, the Vietnam War, as my dad used to always say, because my big kilt papa, military man himself and a historian, gave lectures and talks, he openly despised American jingoism, saber rattling and so-called heroism. And he watched all the TV news reports about Vietnam and despised Americans for it. And then, of course, he began to see the movies that I was getting in, like First Blood, Rambo, Missing in Action, Uncommon Valor. I loved them. But then he watched things like Platoon and Hamburger Hill and Full Metal Jacket. And I think he began to understand a bit more of what the psychology was and how it was such a mixed up war. These people, most of them didn't want to be there. And the ones that did want to be there were actually psychologically damaged in the first place. But as I said before, it was an absolute breeding ground for special forces. We love our special ops, don't we? Yes, we do. We love our Green Berets, our SEALs, our Delta Force, our SAS. Cheers to all the boys putting their lives on the line, who know what they're doing. The Vietnam was a huge case in point of a lot of people who did not know what they were doing. Going into, a shitstorm and staring up the hornet's nest. Big mistake. No one's ever defeated him. And this is what we learn in the extended sequence of the French plantation. By the way, folks, this will be a rambling thing. This will be like the full version of, or the dream that is Coppola's full version of Apocalypse Now. I'm going to go off on tangents and tributaries. I'm not reviewing the film. The film is a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. There's no two ways about it. And the beauty is you've got 3 versions you can watch. And one of them will be your favourite. So you've got your masterpiece there. But we'll come back onto all that again. But the reason why I've suddenly begun to like the French plantation sequence a lot more is because it gives a broader outlook on the entire debacle of foreign involvement in Southeast Asia. The French in the 50s were in there and they met a catastrophic defeat at Dien Bien Phu. They weren't fighting the Viet Cong, they were fighting the Viet Minh. And it was a sustained campaign. They had airdrops, there was thousands of people. They had garrisoned, they had different points of the stronghold there, which came under incessant attack. The Viet Minh learned different ways of getting in there, and they had lots of artillery bombardments. And in the end, they completely overran the French at Dien Bien Phu. It was a last stand, and many were killed, and many were taken captive, and many never returned, of course. So the French plantation sequence is quite special in some regards, whereas I didn't appreciate it to begin with, because I thought in the theatrical cut there's a sense sometimes it could be languid, but there's a constant sense of movement heading towards Kurtz, Marlon Brando's renegade, Colonel Walter E. Kurtz, with his band of Montagnard militia, who is acting like a god up in Cambodia. and causing a shitstorm of trouble. So they have to wipe him out, terminate with extreme prejudice. And but the point of the French is that the guys who run that plantation, and they've got quite an army of themselves to protect it, and we first discover it through the wafting fog and mist across the river. And whoever's left on the boat at that time, and there aren't that many of them now. Well, you've lost one. You've lost Lawrence Fishburne as Clean. Mr. Clean has been shot in a really tragically horrible sequence. We'll go into all of this, and they will discover these French plantation owners, ghostly figures, and they will surrender their weapons, and they'll go in. Now, and whereas the rest of the crew of the Navy patrol boat, which Captain Willard's been sent on, they're his escort up the Nung River. They'll sit elsewhere while Captain Willard, Special Forces, in his tiger stripe fatigues, tiger stripes should be, they're here. He'll sit with all the people who own this plantation, the extended family and other investors in this place. And you are given a lengthy and argumentative, you've got various different viewpoints from different characters about why they're still there, and how D&B and Fu, the debacle and defeat of that. We will not give in again. We will never give in. Never give in. We didn't give in at D&B and Fu, and we were overrun, but we will stand here and we will fight. This is our land. We were here. The French were there for a long. The French have been there way a good 100 years beforehand, and tried to colonise it and move in, and along with other countries as well. So that point comes across, and what I think Coppola's doing is he said his film, my film is not about Vietnam. My film is Vietnam. And I get it now, having watched that version. And that version came out, the final cut, in 2019, the 40th anniversary. But I hadn't watched it. I only got that the other day. And I thought, because I just thought, I'd reviewed the film The Last Hunter, which some of you guys will remember. Did a very extensive review of the Italian exploitation actioner The Last Hunter with David Warbeck and Tisa Farrow, and I love it. It's great. But it was also called in some territories Apocalypse Tomorrow, because it was viewed, or the Deer Hunter too. It was cashing in on Apocalypse Now and the Deer Hunter, but it was just a gory, gnarly, nasty Nam actioner. But because I'd watched that and I thought, gotta watch Apocalypse Now again. I'll go and get. Oh, hang on, there's the final cut. I haven't seen that, and that come out a few years ago. Where's my thinking? So I ordered it, bought it, watched it, loved it. It got to the point where the plantation scene come on, and I thought, oh, here we go. This is where, it takes you out of it. And it does. There's pros and cons. The pros are you learn more about the Vietnam situation, and how it's withheld against every other invader, and how it became, a superb stronghold against any, invaders. And they had a lot of firepower, a lot of backing, and a force to be reckoned with. But the fight to stop communism was the American push, of course, and but hearing their diatribe about this place that they love, well, my father was here, my grandfather was here, we're staying here. It's all great, and I love the fact that the guy in charge gets really angry at some stages and then calms down. And like Willard he doesn't drink whiskey, he doesn't drink wine, he drinks cognac. he's a Captain Cognac, and I like that. It's a weird sort of little aside to his character, and you get these volatile other characters who they've got different ideas as to why they should still be there and what the point of it is. Even because, as Willard says, you can't last. They'll just take you out like D&B and Fu. You will be overrun. and then all of the folks, the fellas will go, but you've got the girl there. Now this is, all the prose was talking about the larger picture of Vietnam and Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand, and all the conflicts that have been there, and foretelling stuff that would happen as well. It's important and it's very interesting. But then Willard meets the girl, and there's a really bizarre sort of nonsensical liaison that takes place, and that's what I don't like. The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, it's male centric. The Thing itself, I've argued, is female. The way it's moist and it's insidious and it wraps around men, absorbs them in. I have discussed this before in much greater detail. But The Thing is a male-centric movie. And Apocalypse Now, theatrically, was always a male-centric movie. It was only when you saw the Playboy playmates land and do their dance to Susie Q, which is fucking awesome, I will have to admit. I don't blame any man there, any grunt, any ass in the grass, marine, who leaps across into the water and then molests them and then gets on the helicopter like landing gear to go with them. They've been living in hell, and then suddenly paradise is dropped into you to tease and tempt and tantalise. What do you think they're going to do? And in that sequence, I love the fact that Martin Sheen, Willard, knows what's going to happen, and he just sits up. You got this song and dance routine. They're all showing off their boobs, their ass, to all these guys. Well, let's just see what happens, shall we? And he watches, and he knows, and of course, riot ensues. What derails that is that then him and his patrol boat mates meet those bloody playmates, and that is just garbage. So that's in the Redux, but it's not in the final cut. Thank fuck for that, because that's just stupid shite. You don't need it at all. You really don't. It's again, that's whereas the plantation sequence now, I can understand the point behind it. It's given the more expansive history and overview of the things that have happened in Vietnam and why invaders can never win there. It'll never happen. And although these French guys are saying like, no, we owe it to our forefathers and everybody who's been here. It'll never happen again. We'll never be driven out. We'll never be overrun. We will win. But Willard's saying, but you won't, because like D&B and Fu, they're going to take you over. So you've got no chance, really. I get that. But then you give him this ridiculous love scene, which I just don't think... I think suddenly at that stage, Coppola, he wanted, his cake, to have his cake and eat it. So, I'm going to put some sex scenes in, a bit of nudity, because that's what people want as well. So I'm going to put that in. I'm not against that. Of course I'm not. Jesus Christ, I'm massively all for nudity. But it's got to have context. It's got to be part of the story. And I don't think Willard and meeting this girl and the crew and their bit of impromptu R&R with the playmates works at all. So I'm glad the playmates extra bit is not there. I'm unhappy, I would say, that Willard's extended sequence with the girl goes on. I don't mind the actual dinner table conversation and the weird looks between, weird scenes inside the gold mine. But the weird looks between the girl and Willard, who's trying to be respectful and all that. But he's a special forces grunt who's also gone through psychological breakdown as well. Because, of course, we're introduced to him. And he's in an alcohol fugue in Saigon. Shit. And in Saigon. Still only in Saigon and all that. And he does some martial arts and punches the mirror through. And cuts himself and goes into despair. But he's waiting for a mission. He's been there for a week now, waiting for a mission. And then he will be given a mission by Harrison Ford, of course. To kill, terminate Colonel Kurtz, Marlon Brando, who is the oldest guy to have ever gone through the airborne course and then the special forces course, where the next youngest guy was half his age, and like that course almost killed Willard, and they play him recordings which have been monitored from Cambodia of Colonel Kurtz's bizarre musings on existence and life. Dream of a snail crawling along the edge of a straight razor. And it goes on, but it survives, and it's my dream, it's my nightmare. We'll come on to more of Kurtz, of course, and as Willard says in his later narration by, let me just have a look, Michael Hare did the script, did the narration. We have Willard delivering shades of Harrison Ford again in Blade Runner, giving a sort of laconic, in Harrison Ford gets bored off his tits narration, which I actually quite like from the original cut of Blade Runner. But in this, I think Willard's narration was always meant to be there. Someone would go, no, it wasn't. It was an extra thing. There's so much production minutiae, it's hard to remember. And that's what I love about this movie. As much as you think you know, there's a hell of a lot more. The more you think you know, the less you actually do know about the production. And but I quite like that narration. And he says, sort of later on the patrol boat, he said, like, I'd heard his voice on the tape recordings, and it really put the hook into me. But the more I read in the dossier on Colonel Kurtz, the less I could believe that. Why would they want this man dead? He was being groomed for one of the top jobs in the corporation, top brass and political as well. He got every military medal going. He was a massively vainglorious and wonderful officer, gallant, and as we get told by the commanding officer there who gives the mission, whose name I have now forgotten, he said like, he was a wonderful man, a great man, a brilliant soldier, and a good humanitarian man with wit and wisdom. But his methods, when he came back to Vietnam, his methods became unsound, and he has clearly gone insane. And you've got like Willard's there going, oh yeah, clearly, yeah, he's insane. He's fucking wacko, man, But of course, the film is all about madness and becoming a zealot and becoming a god and falling in love with your own grandiose ambition and believing that you are what the people think you are, which of course in long protracted campaigns where people are cut off from the chain of command for a length of time, and in a situation like that in Vietnam, which was particularly unique as well, the temptation, as we get told, the temptation to play God, to be God, will be irresistible. And even though he was a brilliant man, things he'd seen had changed him. Now, we already know that Captain Willard, Martin Sheen, is a changed man. He's gone back to Vietnam, and he went back home, and barely said a word to my wife until I said yes to a divorce. So it's already PTSD and the whole displaced psychosis of Vietnam veterans. It's already in this story right from the word go. And he just wants to be in the jungle. And the thing about Willard is he's a sort of black ops assassin. He's worked for the CIA and he's been out working for the military. He is a top level assassin. We know he's got 6 confirmed kills that he narrates to us. I think 3 of them so close I could feel their last breath on my face. But a guy likes to work alone, which is why initially he's reading the dossier on the patrol boat for Colonel Kurtz, and he's like, and he's narrating again, and he's saying like, I had to be escorted on a Navy PBR, a sort of plastic fabricated patrol boat. You see him all up and down all the rivers in Vietnam. but it was the best way to infiltrate without drawing any undue attention, quietly and all that. And he does say, like, but sadly I'm with other people. So he's a loner. He wants to be alone. And that is, you know, your special forces, well, let's call them assassins. The whole thing is about being an assassin. As Colonel Kurtz says, like, because he knows he's gone renegade, and the military top brass want him gone, want him dead. And he's like, well, you know, something, but what is it called when the assassins accuse the assassin, you know? And as Willard says, you know, charging around with murder in this place, it's like handing out speeding tickets at the Indy 500, you know, it just doesn't make any sense. And that is, in a nutshell, just those lines of dialogue from the movie really encapsulate the bizarre attitude of the military and the American political system thrust into a environment which they have no control over. You can thrust as much money, manpower, machinery into these volatile territories. Doesn't mean a damn thing. You could carpet bomb. Doesn't mean a damn thing. The only people you're killing are the people you're pretending to be saving from communism. Which, of course, you know. What's that line when they strafe the boat, the sampan going up and down the river, and it's a family on board that, and Willard saying, Chief, why you want to stop this? He said, no, but they send ammunition and supplies down, you know, they're doing it all the time. Routine check, Captain, routine check. We haven't got time for this. Well, we're going to do it anyway. So they go there. And it's one of the, there's a few shocking scenes in the movie. But this, I think, from a story point of view and a character point of view, this is the most shocking, beyond any shadow of a doubt. Cheers, Joe. I haven't spoken about the crew yet, but we will do now. You've got Albert Hall playing Chief Phillips. He used to, you know, it was my mission, but it sure as shit was his boat. You know, he's in charge of the boat. You've got Frederick Forrest, great Frederick Forrest, who looks just like Tom Hardy in this movie. He's a dead ringer for Tom Hardy in this film. And he plays chef. You know, what do you call your chef? Oh, I'm a saucier. Saucier. What's a saucier? Oh, saucier works with sauces. I was going to Paris to learn sauciers, you know, and then I got my draft up papers and all that. So you got him. And you've got the young Lawrence Fishburne, pockmarked with big zits, because you're only super young as Clean, or Mr. Clean. And you've got Sam Bottoms as Lance, who's the surf boy, the legendary surfer. Come on to all that. But you've got, he doesn't like being with these guys, you know, it's just, they're a distraction. He'd rather work alone, but he needs them to get him as far up the river as possible. This mission doesn't exist. This mission will never have existed. He knows all this shit, like, he's done it before. But, so up the river they go, but they've got to be escorted to the actual proper, you know, there's 2 points to get into the real Nung River. So, but they're both Charlie's points, and they're hot. They're hot and they're hairy. I'm saying nothing. And but they're going to meet Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore, Robert Duvall. I thought the smell of napalm in the mornings, you know. That smell, gasoline smell, you know. It smells like victory. And he's there with his big cavalry Stetson, full cowboy hat on, with cavalry hat band as well, because they are air cavalry, they are air mobile. And of course the cavalry who used to ride horses then took up helicopters, and as Willard says, like, you know, they are air cav, air mobile, they just love this. They were zipping about all over Vietnam, you know, looking for this shit, you know, and they have a wonderful time. They have sound systems on their helicopters playing Wagner's The Ride of the Valkyries. Scares the shit out of the slopes. But he's looking for a place to surf because Colonel Kilgore is a surfer as well. And some of his men are surfers, but when they meet Lance, they're like, oh my God, it's Lance. Oh, it's an honour to meet you. You know, this is fucking Colonel Kilgore with his death cards. When they first meet them, they were meant to meet them 30 clicks up the river, but they were too early because what they'd got in and done a massive attack on some VC village, and like by the time we got there, they were just mopping up, and it only happened an hour ago. So they're there, and there's all bodies everywhere, and this again is the weird dichotomy, duality of people in Vietnam and the American attitude there. They've just destroyed arbitrarily a village, and Kilgore will demand a napalm strike. I want to take that tree line back. I need space to breathe. You know, so he's going to call in an airstrike to napalm all of this fucking tree line. But you've got dead bodies there of VC or NVA, and he's throwing death cards down, and of course the people on the boat are like, what are these? But Willard knows. He's like, no, death cards. It lets Charlie know who did this, so they're afraid of him and all that. And he'll find that in the two, and I like his character's a fantastic character. He's clearly modelled on the vainglorious Custer, who of course was cavalry, and led his men into an absolute, debacle of a massacre. And he's been vilified for his glory-seeking campaign, his political campaign and his military campaign. But anyway, but Kilgore is clearly a modern offshoot of that Vietnam interpretation. And as Willard says, like, because he takes his shirt off, got his hat on, his sunglasses on, his Ray-Bans, and he's just strutting around, and there's still artillery fire and mortar fire coming in. And of course, Robert Duvall superbly doesn't flinch at all when explosions go off right behind him, and he just he might just look at it. But the one when he's kneeling down, squatting down, and he's talking about napalm, and one goes off behind him, doesn't flinch. And everyone else is like that. It's outstandingly well done. And but there'll be a dying VC. Shot through the guts, who's holding his own guts in, and like they've got like one of their own scouts who's Vietnamese in full tiger stripes, and he's like what's wrong with this man, and he's going like he wants water, sir. He wants water. Look, but he's VC. Just get the fuck away from him. Pushes the scout. Fuck off. Give me my canteen. Any man who can hold his guts in, like, after fighting a battle, he can drink from my canteen anytime. So you think, good on you. But then something else will happen, and you'll hear about Lance being there, I think that's what it is. And suddenly he just grabs the canteen and fucking throws it away. The poor guy never really got much anyway, but the intention was there. And then you will see a woman who's got an injured infant in her arms, and he will stop and like, get this baby to a hospital now, get it on the landing craft, get it to medical aid, and he's escorting the woman on. It's a way we had of dealing with things over there. We cut him in half with a machine gun and give him a band-aid. Which brings me back to the point that I told you I'd ramble off, didn't I? The bit on the boat, the most shocking, the bit on the boat, the whole fucking film's on a boat. The bit with the sampan coming down the river, and Chief wants to make the sort of investigative sortie. Willard knows, look, this is a distraction. I've got to get up this river. Stop fucking about, No, just going to make a quick check, Captain. And Lance, get on the no, it's clean. Get on the 50 caliber light on the front of their patrol boat, and it's a horrible sequence. They send Chef on there, Frederick Forrest on there. She's looking for some in there. Chef, go on, have a look down there. Look, there's nothing here. It's just rice. It's just fucking rice. It's just fucking rice, man. It's just food. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. And then one of the girls runs towards the back of the sampan, and all of a sudden, fucking clean Lawrence Fishburne just fucking unleashes with the 50 cal. Fucking kills everybody. And they're like, screaming. And like, you've got the others come up, Lance comes up, and it was fucking M16, putting bullets in the screaming and all that, like. And what was she going for? A puppy. But she's not dead. And like, this is the scene that gets me every time. Look, she's breathing there. Chef, she's breathing. Woman's breathing there. See how she is, check it out. And like, it's like, you got Lawrence Fishburne's realised, oh shit, it was just a puppy. And he pulls the mag hammer down, like, whoop, just killed a load of innocent people. And the others have joined in as well, except for Willard, who was not happy about this. And like, right, Willard, we gotta take it, get a medical assistance. And Willard then, now he's supposed to be the guy we're following, just pulls out the automatic. I told you not to stop. Now let's get going. And they are all horrified that he's just done that when they committed an atrocity themselves. It's this which is such a great, cruel, and yet incredibly accurate depiction of uncontrolled warfare. There is a thing, there is controlled warfare, there is controlled fighting, and there are rules of conduct. Vietnam, Second World War, Vietnam very definitely brought out a lot of things that happened behind enemy lines. A lot of things happened away from the chain of command, away from observing eyes. Every conflict probably does involve it, but of course the likes of the First World War, Second World War and onwards, you'd have a lot of reporting about these things, and you'd hear these things, and they wouldn't be just swept under the carpet and forgotten about. There'd be footage of it. Vietnam had a hell of a lot of that going on, and this sequence absolutely nails the paranoia, the madness, and the guns. You've got kids with firepower, and you've got a guy who is barely in control, and yet doesn't know what he's doing exactly, and that's the chief, Albert Hall, and like, so they're going to do it because they're jittery, they're nervous. You can't tell the innocence from the enemy. They look the same, and all the bad guys want to kill them, you know, with the most horrible traps and stuff going. So it's horribly real, is what I'm saying. And like, and Chef's just going, it's a puppy, it's just a fucking puppy, it's a fucking puppy, man. You're going for a puppy, and he's crying. And then you got Lance, the surfer boy, who, as Willard says, like, you know, you take one look at him, you just knew he'd never fired a gun in his life. Well, he fucking did there, and he drags the puppy off him, and the puppy yelps, but then and it's real, and the puppy's in his arms, and he keeps the puppy for a while. Well, for a while anyway. We don't see what happened. The puppy could survive, although you've got tigers in this jungle. And there's another little sojourn, another little, let's just stop. I want to get some mangoes, says Chef Frederick Forrest. I want to get some mangoes. You like mangoes? This is what we learn about him being a saucier and all that, like. And they do go into like a sort of that twilight of the jungle, and obviously Willard says, I'll go with you. So he's there, and of course, because Willard loves the jungle. He's clearly damaged, but he's happier when he's actually doing stuff, when he's got a mission, and he can go into the bush, into the jungle, and that's when it comes alive again. So I'll go with you. And but he heard a noise, and what is it? Is it Charlie? Is it VC? It's a fucking tiger. And you don't see it, but they obviously M16 the ass off that poor tiger, and they get back on the boat. Yeah, you know what line I'm coming to. And like, you know, tiger's a fucking tiger! And they're all like, they're strafing the jungle on the boat. The boat takes off. They go, it's just a fucking tiger! It's just a fucking tiger! You know, it's brilliant. And like, never get off the boat! Never get off the boat! Never get out of the boat. That's the quote. And so like, the narration goes, never get out of the boat. Absolutely goddamn right. Unless you were going all the way. Kurtz got off the boat. He split from the entire fucking program. wonderful, wonderful quote. And it encapsulates so much of Vietnam. How many people did go off the boat, get off the boat and split from the entire program because they're able to do so. Drugs, marijuana, a lot of, combat troops out there fought excellently. They did. But this film does depict how a Navy PBR can just float up and down the Mekong Delta to its heart's content, having days, probably weeks of no action whatsoever, just sunning themselves and getting spliffed off their tits and having a great time. A lot of troops out there were doing exactly that. The ones who were in the field were switched on and they fought like bastards, but they were fighting an enemy they couldn't possibly ever win. Cheers, y'all. Along this way, we'll have lots of other little stop-offs. The Da Nang Bridge, oh sweet Jesus Christ, where you have Roach, played by, I've got his name here somewhere, Herb Rice. The film has a lot of stop-offs where they need to get fuel or ammunition, and there might be people there who are waiting to, we know you're coming, Captain, so we've been ordered to give you this or give you instructions and whatever. But at the Da Nang Bridge, where the Yanks build it up and the VC blow it down all the time, and it's an endless campaign, and they're dug in trenches, and no one has a fucking clue what's going on. Nobody. You have lots of these scenes where Captain Willard will arrive at a destination, a stop-off point, and will be asking, who's in command here? Who's in command? He only finds two commanders. One of them is Colonel Kilgore, who obviously gets off from his helicopter with his Stetson on, like, yo, Joy don't surf. We'll talk more about him later, because he's such a he is great. Two figures overshadow this movie. One is Kilgore and one is Kurtz. It's funny that, because the two guys who own the film their names begin with K, Kilgore and Kurtz. And on the boat, you've got Chef, you've got Clean, and you've got Chief, and they all die. Names beginning with C, die. But the K's seem to rule Vietnam. And so whenever they get somewhere, like, who's commanding officer, who's in charge here? Ain't you? Because no one knows. Oh, he got killed the other day. And like, well, who's in command? I don't know. Maybe he's over. I don't fucking know. But at Da Nang, Da Nang Bridge, they've got sappers who are blowing up the American areas, and they're on the tree line. It's nighttime. It's all lit up by flares and explosions, and it's explosively surreal and beautifully eerie. And you've got already, after the debacle on the sampan, you've got Lance, who's got his fucking puppy dog in his fucking tropical shirt, and he's got camouflage face paint on, and he's dropped acid. You dropped acid, man? Wow. And he's enjoying all the flares and the mortars and all that, and he's just sitting on top of sandbanks and things. And Willard's going like, Lance, get down! For fuck's sake. And they're stumbling over people who are just, you've got all the brothers who've got their music playing on their transistors and all that, and you've got other guys who are like, get out of my face, man, you're standing on my face. And you've got this other guy like, soldier, who are you shooting at? We got sappers out there, man, motherfucker, don't you? Oh, I'm sorry, Sam, sorry, I didn't see it. Because, weirdly enough, Willard is wearing insignia on his tiger stripes. He's on a mission behind enemy lines. He wouldn't have that. I know I've got a big M65 tiger stripe here, but this will be when they come back, full of Vietnam insignia. It's a wonderful, proper, real old Vietnam jacket. There's also a bit of saluting taking place in the field, which is a very uncool thing to do, especially when the enemy are around, because if you start saluting people, then they know who, oh, that's a commander-in-chief. Pew! Dead. And you've also got some elements of the white triangle, the white t-shirt Americans wore underneath their green fatigues, which gave away perfectly a little target. White triangle. Down you go. They did stop doing that, and they wear green, olive drab. But these guys, he's like, soldier, who are you shooting at? There's sappers out there, you know, can you hear him? And I think I've wounded him, you know, and this guy's screaming, screaming for his mates. Come on, motherfucker! Come on, motherfucker! And he's giving it fucking loads. Soldier, who's in command here? Ain't you? I'm like, no, oh man, listen, he's alive. He's calling to his friends. He's calling to his gook friends. Call the roach. That's Herr Bryce, and the roach comes up, and he is... I'm not even certain he's actually spliffed up or drugged up, acid dropped, whatever. He's in a different zone. He's in a different plateau of existence. But he's got a grenade launcher. And they go, bring the roach up. He just pops a grenade down, clocks it up. Can you get him? Yeah. He's close, man. He's real close. And this guy's been screaming, and no screaming. And Willard goes like, soldier, who's in command? Do you know who's in command here? And he just goes, yeah. Just walks away. And like, Willard just goes, fuck this. Grabs Lance, and off they go back. And then he gets some fuel there, and like, Captain Phillips is going like, did you find who's in charge? There's no one in charge here. It's just a disaster. I talked about the playmates element, which is great for what it is. The extended bit I don't like. I do not like. Just don't think you need it. The Kilgore sequence. You know, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. And the ride of the Valkyries. Don't you worry, young captain. We'll drop your boat wherever you want it. You know. But we've got to get to it. It's Charlie's Point, though, sir. You know, Charlie's Point. Charlie don't surf. You know. Fucking great. He wants to see Lance surf. Lance is the legendary surfer. He wants to see him do it, and he's got his own surfboard. You know, and like, you know, in this place, it's watch this. Lance, it goes. See the surf. It goes two ways. You can have two. It's Tube City. You know, we've got two guys going two different directions at the same time, like that. And he's trying to coerce Lance, but sorry. Ride of the Valkyries, of course. Oh my god. What a stunning sequence. So it's Charlie's Point, but we need to drop my boat there. So we'll pick your boat up and we'll carry it out there and we'll drop it into the estuary. And off you go, young captain. So they do that, and they're in the helicopters. Well, it's Charlie's Point, but we'll take it out. Doesn't matter to us. So they're all in the helicopters. One guy takes his helmet off, like he sits on it, and the chef's going like, "Hey, why do you guys all sit on your helmets? You know, so we don't get our balls blown off." And like he could, oh shit! They put their sound system on. Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries, and it's just, it is. Probably the most famous sequence from the movie. A movie whichever version you watch, has innumerable fantastic sequences and set piece incidences and scenarios, but this is its own epic set piece. Helicopters come in, they begin strafing. Oh my god, the MS-60s are going. They're shooting M16s out as well. You've seen a quiet, peaceful Vietnamese village. But it's not though, is it? Because it is Charlie. It's Charlie's Point. And they've got anti-aircraft weaponry there. There's a lot of them there. And they've got trenches and dugouts and all that sort of thing. But there's a school there, and just before the attack begins, you see all the little school kids, and they all line up behind each other to be escorted off in the big courtyard. They're like, oh God, don't hurt any of them. Please don't hurt. And this comes home to you a lot in the movie. The Viet Cong, Charlie, the Vietnamese, the Montagnards and the tribes, we see them, but we don't know them. We're not given a chance to get to know any of those, because it's told from a uniquely American perspective, which is probably for the best for this particular movie. Otherwise, Christ, if you're giving Coppola a chance to go through all of that side of things as well, The film would never end. It would just never end. I'm playing this on repeat here, as you may have noticed, because it just sums up the film perfectly. I see the full soundtrack is there. That is the original double album, Gatefold, which came out, but it has an inordinate amount of dialogue on it as well, which, although cool at the time, now you want the music, and the music was done by Francis Ford Coppola and his mother, Carmine. Was it his mother? Is it Carmine? Carmine sounds like a father's name, Carmine, but I think it's his mother. Someone will correct me on that. They did the music for it. But you also had Shirley Walker, the great Shirley Walker, as one of the synth artists on the movie, of which there were plentiful, because a lot of very electronic sounding drones and Hans Zimmer, going on, and really eerie stuff. And it's great, and it's on that, along for a version of the score to come out, which is just the Coppola's music and Shelley Walker and all the others without the dialogue, but to my knowledge we haven't got it. So again, if someone else knows, comment below and let me know. But so Ride of the Valkyries comes on and they go in strafing runs, and you've got Lee Ermey, US Marine drill instructor from Met 7, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and oh god, so many movies. He's in the little Huey. He's the sighter. He's going to say, we've got weapons down there. There's some kind of big gun down there. I've got to go and check it out. So he's giving all the right. You got to take that out. And of course, great shot there, Rogue One or whatever. Get you a case of beer for that one. And then they've got a car and they're driving along this little rickety bridge, and that gets blown up. But they're trying to save some of these kids, and they got injured down below in the courtyard when the Americans land. And of course, they've got one guy whose leg's been severed. And they're all trying to attend. He's screaming, hollering, oh God. And they go, get that fucking helicopter in. And you've got Kilgore. Again, this is Kilgore. Because he, as Willard says, he loved his boys. And they all loved him back as well. I suppose he was a good commander. Although he's completely sort of, gung-ho, but he looks after his people, and he's like, I've got wounded down there. I want my wounded taken out. Why am I giving him Stallone's mouth? I've got wounded down there. Get him out. Get him out to hospital. Get him out now. Helicopter comes down, and he managed to get this guy. Where's that fucking stretcher? You get him on, and of course, one of the female VC comes running out with their hat, and it's explosive, and just throws it on. And you see it. They're filming from above, and it's just. And a guy flies out on fire, and they're oh, fucking hell. Get that bitch. So they go after it, and they kill her, put bullets up her ass and all that. It's a tremendously exciting sequence. It's also pulverizing horrible in so many ways. The abstract bloodlust and carnal primal desire to destroy and to kill comes really to the fore with high firepower and a lot of carnage. But it is a great sequence. The extended sequence, of course, is because they've now got Charlie's Point with this whoosh. It goes both ways, look. It's Tube City. And they want Lance to do it. And Lance is like, fuck. Because there's artillery blowing up. They've got two of Kilgore's men, who are surfers, are out there. And they're getting blown off the surfboards. And so Lance is like, I gotta do this. What, out there? They're still shooting. No, you can do it. Come on, Lance. All the boys want to see you do it. But their boat gets dropped. Right, we get on that boat and we get out of here. Lance, come on, this is Willard. Let's get out of here. And this is one of the few moments, I was saying before, but the narration and the acting and the character of Martin Sheen's Captain Willard. Willard doesn't seem to change a great deal, despite what happens around him, what he witnesses. His sort of mute acceptance and observation of all the madness and chaos taking place around him is, he doesn't need to speak about it. He's the observer. He's seen a lot of it before, but now he's seeing even more of it. and he knows he knows the cancer, which is in the American military system, has now extended even further, and he's powerless to stop it. But he's got his mission to do. But in this sequence, right, Lance, get on board the boat, and then Kilgore's helicopter's there, and but his big surfboard's there as well. So he fucking grabs the surfboard and it forces away. You know, Kilgore's men are like, "What the fuck are you doing? Give us a fucking get it on the boat, Lance. Get on the boat. Get on the boat, Chief. Fucking fire her up." Off they go, and they're laughing their heads off. And that's an extended sequence which you get in the Redux and you get in the final cut. And I'm glad it's there. It does. If you've only seen the theatrical cut, it will bring out a lesser quality in Kilgore, because Kilgore then will mount a campaign by sending helicopters out with this droning radio mantra. "I love that surfboard. Lance, I want the surfboard back. I like it. Please, I just want the surfboard back." And Lance is going he's not going to follow us all the way to Cambodia, is he? No, he won't go further up the river. He won't want anyone up there knowing that he's lost his surfboard and all that. But it shows Willard bonding with the crew of the boat, which he doesn't do a lot. They get mail from home, and of course, Lawrence Fishburne gets the tape from his mum. The tape recorder arrives, and he's got a tape from her. So bring your hiney home. Just watch out for the bullets, and we're saving up to buy you a car, but don't tell anyone because it's meant to be our big secret. Ha ha ha. At the same time, they come under attack, and poor old gets shot clean through. Lawrence Fishburne gets wasted, and it's an immensely moving sequence where Chief, because they're the two black fellas on the boat, and they clearly have a bond, because he's always with drumsticks and helmets on the side of the boat, drumming out riffs and stuff and he's got Purple Haze, man, Purple Haze, and he's funny, and Chief is older than him, but he clearly looks on him as a little protege, and when he gets shot and he dies, and he's crying over his body. Oh, it's genuinely horrible. Of course, what happens in when you get the Redux or the final cut, when they meet the French plantation owners, that's where Clean is buried there. They take his body because Willard says put your weapons down, and we're Americans, and not often a good thing to do in some other foreign country. We're Americans. Keep hold of your head. We've lost a man. So they do a funeral, because he says, the French, we honour the dead. They gave their lives, and that's the biggest sacrifice. And so don't worry, you come to dinner, we'll bury your mate. Trivian. So that's what they do, and it's so he gets a burial at least, and they have this whole thing to discuss that. But then they go off again, and you will have Lance again with his camouflage. What's with the face paint? It's camouflage, man. They can't see us. You're on a fucking patrol boat. It's fucking obvious, and it is obvious. They come under a hailstorm of arrows, but they're just sticks. They're just sticks. This is Willard saying they're just sticks, man. They're just sticks. And then suddenly a spear gets thrown, a proper big spear, something a bit like this. Hold on. Always got something to hand, and goes straight through from the back, and Chief Phillips just goes, "A spear," and he collapses, and down he goes, and Willard's over him what can I do? And the Chief wakes up, begins to start strangling, Phillips, Captain Willard, and dragging him down towards the spike, which is the spear, which is still sticking through his chest. So he has to like fucking break. Well, I'm not sure if he breaks his neck, but he forces him back so that his head he stops breathing, and so he ends up having to kill Captain Phillips, just to Chief Phillips. Wasn't Captain Phillips? Wasn't that Tom Hanks? Did Martin Sheen have to kill Tom Hanks? I don't know. But what happens then is like you have Lance. So you get a funeral at sea. Lance will take Chief Phillips' body out into the water and like just circle down into the horrible, disease-ridden Mekong Delta. But they can't keep the body with them, can they? And then of course, where are they going to end up? Oh, in that sequence they lose the dog as well. Where's the dog? Where's the dog? Sam Bottoms, who's great in this. He's like, where's the dog gone? The dog has gone during that attack. Cheers, y'all. And cheers to all the lost pups out there. May you find your way home again. And then they get to the end of the river. And who's at the end of the river in Cambodia? Kurtz. But not only Kurtz, Dennis Hopper's there too, as the zoned off his tits photojournalist in tiger stripes. And my mate Tom, regular viewers know that my mate Tom is the guy that helped me construct my shark cage for the Matt Hooper Jaws action figure. He also helped me attend the premiere of Mad Max Fury Road with the correct Mad Max 2, actual Mad Max 2 Mel Gibson shoulder pad on my jacket in time for the premiere by riveting it on the jacket, because he was the only person I knew who could do this. And and also Tom Murdoch is an absolute dead ringer for Dennis Hopper in Apocalypse Now, with the hair and the foliage. He is. And Dennis Hopper is off his fucking box. That's why he's there. You expect it from him. He looks like you do see a picture of Charles Manson. You see Willard will look at sort of press cuttings from home, and Charles Manson's there. And I was going to say Tom Murdoch then, but Dennis Hopper, the journalist, does have a look of Charles Manson. I think that's deliberate as well. I mean, it's like so you've only now got Chef, you've got Willard, and you've got Lance. He's now told him what I've got to do. What his mission is. Well, you've got to go we come all this way, and you've got to go and kill one of our own. Well, that makes all the fucking sense in the world. It's like fucking war. It's fucking what the... Yeah, well, And you've had this odyssey that Willard's been on, learning more and more about Kurtz. The more I read about him, the more I couldn't believe they wanted this man dead. It's genius. He's perfection. Is that why? But obviously his methods have become unsound, and he's wanted because he killed, 4 South Vietnamese officials who he believed and had evidence for being double agents. So he had them executed. I think it's 3 men and 1 woman, and so that's primarily it. But he's operating beyond the pale. He's clearly gone insane, and he's still in the field commanding troops. He's got an army there, and he's doing things which we can't control. We can't let that happen. So that's why he's got to be taken out. Terminated with extreme prejudice. Remember that. It's important. And terminate with just a little bit of prejudice. Just kick him in the balls a couple of times. Pinch his skin. Ooh! No, he'll be terminated with extreme prejudice. And he won't be the only thing terminated with extreme prejudice, which happens for real. But we'll come on to that as well. So they arrive at this Buddhist monastery at the river's edge. It goes back to temples, forest overgrown, vines everywhere, incredibly exotic and totally otherworldly, with a huge tribal army there of Montagnards and obviously local tribes as well. And a couple of special forces men, including Scott Glenn. Yes, Scott Glenn. As, is he Captain or Lieutenant Colby? Who well, this is the thing. In the full the 6-hour version, you'll have a lot of Colby in there. In the theatrical cut, you only see him a couple of times. And the same for the Redux and the final cut, you don't really see much more of him. But there are scenes, there's more scenes of him which you can find on YouTube or on the discs and stuff like that. The making of. So he is was meant to be in a lot more. But they're there. Colonel Kurtz isn't there. But a whole bunch of 7 heads and hanging bodies are. There's bodies everywhere. It's an abattoir, it's a carnal house. It's just absolute just bodies. And they're hanging, they're dropping. It's like Tortuga. No, not Tortuga. It's a port, oh God, in Pirates of the Caribbean, where they got the pirates are hanging there, like, it's like, pirates beware, the sign, and all that, like, so you've got them hanging from trees, and like, bodies will just drop. I feel sorry for the poor people who were performing those roles. They're all hanging there, like, and Jesus Christ, you know. And so they arrive there, and Dennis Hopper is he's just a big bag of nerves, but he's in bliss, you know, like, you're here to see him, of course, hey, Kurtz, who else? I hope you're not here to kill him. No, don't kill him, the man's a genius, he's out there, he thinks, you know what he said to me the other day, he said, the middle word in life is if, that's how he thinks, you know, and it's this jittery bag of, you know, hyper activity, and he's genius, and you need it. After all of this excitement, suspense, sudden tragedy, mystery, build-up of this long-awaited confrontation, suddenly you get this fucking what the hell? And even the theatrical, I think this works superbly. And so he's given it loads, and I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to Kurtz. Well, he's gone away, man. He's gone away. You know, he's away with his people. You know, he's happy with his people and all that. Like, and he's got his camera stuff and all around him because he's gone crazy as well. Like Colby and a couple of other special forces guys who you see in the background. There's always talk that was Colby sent up there to have assassinated him as well. Was he a previous attempt who then went native with Kurtz? And all this excitement, I've forgotten, to be honest, if he is or he isn't. In my mind right now, he's just one of Kurtz's men who stayed with him. That's what I'm thinking now. But again, I could be wrong in the whole spectrum of the whole evolution of this movie. And I hope you're not getting sick of hearing the end, because I never could. I can never hear the end of the end, you know? It's endless. And but of course, so they go back to the boat and say, look, you know, when Kurtz comes back, I've got to assassinate this guy. It says to Chef, you know, for fuck's sake, you know, get on the radio. Here's all the call signs, and this is what you need to know. So you tell them, and they'll come in with the airstrike and all that, like PBR Street Gang. That's their call sign and all that, like. So him and Lance go back up, and suddenly they get molested by all these tribal folk who dragged it. Well, Lance doesn't. Lance gets it. Lance got a fucking arrow through his head, for God, and he's semi-nude anyway. He's off his fucking tits, and they just let him. He's all right. No one touches him. But obviously Willard, Colonel Kurtz, has guessed, so he gets dragged through the mud, and he gets taken into the temple. It smelled like slow death in there, you know, and he will meet Kurtz. Marlon Brando, method actor, Stanislav School and all that, on the waterfront, Streetcar Named Desire, The Godfather, Mutiny on the Bounty, and with Dr. Moreau, he's great. he's incredible. He was a twat to work with, apparently. No surprises there. And he, a bit like Robert Shaw and Richard Harris and many other wild cards of Hollywood, but Marlon Brando is another league above all those names I just mentioned, and he was a complete swine on this. Refused to arrive on set, refused to say the lines, demanded ridiculous things all the time, slowed the whole process down, and yet delivers what is basically an extended cameo, really. A wonderful encapsulation of absolute military madness and megalomania, but with a poetic slant as well. And if you look, I said before about Frederick Forrest, who plays Chef Saucier, who looks like Tom Hardy. Well, now if someone else has said this, and I'll be fucking stunned if no one else has said this, but I've never seen anyone else say it at all, so I'm saying it now. And if you don't believe me, you fucking look, you check this. Just look at the film. Marlon Brando as Colonel Kurtz looks like Steven Seagal in this movie, or rather Steven Seagal looks like Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now. He does. The face, those brows, everything, the leathery look. And Brando, whose weight would fluctuate all the time because of certain conditions that he had, he would overeat and then he'd diet like crazy, and he could be huge. And he's big in this, but he's not obese. He's big and intimidating, and he's topless. You might see him with some camouflage face paint on, but he's mostly bedecked in shadow, and he'll speak quietly, mumble, and he'll tell Willard things that have made him the way he is. What's happened to him? Willard's Huskies there. Willard has learned a lot about Kurtz on it from the dossiers and all the way up the river, and he can't believe they want this guy dead. He also can't put that voice he heard on the tape to the face he sees. And again, you look at the photos, the staged photos that Marlon Brando took his Special Forces beret on, and it's Steven Seagal, it's Casey Ryback. Cheers. I thought the dog wanted to go out. It's okay, the back door's already open. So, and he will sort of pseudo-interrogate Willard. Ask him where he's from, Ohio, sir. And ask about the Ohio River and how far away from it. And he'll talk about, he will punish Willard for being there in the first place. He'll have him, incarcerated. And he will cut the head off Chef as well, which is one of the shock scenes, of course. You don't expect it, and it comes out like Willard's just like he's probably been starved as well. He's been kept outside in the rainstorms. He's in like a quagmire of mud, tied to like cord around his neck. And he's tied up there, like cross-legged, and suddenly like Marlon Brando's Kurtz will suddenly appear with all the camo face paint on in the rain and just look at him, and then walk around the pillar, and then throw the severed head of Chef into his lap. And you go, oh, it's horrible. And like, there's Chef there. I'm like, what the fuck? It's an eerie sequence where they're coming for him in the boat. You don't know they're coming for him, but the more you watch the film, that's when they're coming for him. And it's a steady metronomic sort of beat which is building up to an unseen, and like poor old Willard's like and he manages to hoist off this severed head with a big clonk on the deck as well. But then they release Willard, and they allow him to walk around the camp untethered, and they'll look after him. And it's like, as Dennis Hopper says, he's dying, I think, But he wants you. You've got to keep his name alive. You know, that's what you're going to do. He's got big things planned for you, my friend. Big things planned for you. You know, not me. I'm just a worm. I'm nothing. You know. I know. You know. He could kill me in the blink of an eye. You know. Why? Why would he do that? Well, the other day I tried to take his picture, and he said to me, "If you take my picture, I'll kill you." And he meant it. He meant it. It's just pure. No, he loves it. Dennis Hopper in this film is in love with his own demise, which you do not see. They did film it, and it doesn't work. Thankfully, it's not in any version of the movie, because it really wouldn't work, I don't think. And then the suicide of Scott Glenn, which again wouldn't work. It's just, what the hell, you know? Again, it's Coppola just like, look, I've got to explore every avenue here, and I've put everything in. And then in the editing room, they're going like, oh, you know what, this doesn't really flow, and you've got to chop that and chop that. And if you've got to chop that, you've got to lose that earlier bit. And this is where the film comes together in the editing room. So I'm doing all of Dennis Hopper, like, you know, maths and science. You want to fly to Venus, man. You want to fly to Venus. You don't land on fraction. You don't land on fraction, do you? You know, he's doing all this fucking stuff like. He must have burnt off a gazillion calories just in fucking gesticulations, man. You know, but he's wonderful. He genuinely is wonderful, and he will disappear because he'll be talking to Willard in the temple. He's like, he's got big things planned for you, man. You know, I'm just a worm. You know. What is it now? You'll go out with. He must have got out with what is it? A roar, not a whimper, and like. Marlon Brando's Kurtz has been reading from a book. He just turns around and fucking hurls the book at him, and he goes, "I'm with a whimper, I'm gone, man." And he is gone in the redux and in the final cut. He's gone. That's it. You won't see him again. So the impression is given that he has just bugged out. I don't think you're actually supposed to even know. If you watch those versions, theatrical redux and final cut, I'm not sure you're supposed to know what's happened to him or even question it. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, you know, you've got Kurtz saying about the inoculated arms. We went to a village and we were vaccinating the children against I think it's polio, and when we done all the children I can't do the mumble, children in the village, we left, and old man in the village came. Well, no, he couldn't speak, he was disturbed and upset. We went back to the village, and they'd come back, the VC had come back, and they'd hacked off every inoculated arm, and there they were, a pile of little arms. I really cannot do Marlon Brando's voice at all. I simply cannot do it. So it haunts me, and I never want to forget it. I never want to forget it. I always want to remember. And this was the turning point for Kurtz, because it's like he tries to work out how anyone could be that cruel and that stupid, but then realise it works the other way. He begins to realise, what it takes to do that strength, that purity, that's power, that's real strength to do that. So his mind went with that image of this pile of little inoculated arms all hacked off. It's a scary image, but these are things which do unhinge people and they could create angels and they could create monsters. In this case, they created a god that is a mixture of both. And his Montagnard followers and the tribal followers love him and adore him. But he is a monster, operating beyond the pale, killing anyone who he might perceive to be a double agent or an enemy. Waging campaigns which don't really exist. He's going further into Cambodia. We're not supposed to be there, legally, or Laos, but they were. Oh, they were. Cheers, Joe. But of course you'll get the execution. The whole reason why bloody Willard's there in the first place. Got to happen. And he'll come out from the water with his camo paint on. And he has that huge, wicked, I don't even know what that weapon is. This big scythe-like thing. And that poor water buffalo will be led to its filmed sacrificial death. Very troubling, no special effects. Real buffalo, water buffalo, getting hacked to pieces in front of the baying tribal crowd. And Sam Bottoms as well, who is there. Now, that sequence of the sacrificial ritual, well, it incurred the wrath of a lot of people, animal rights activists, film fans who just, did you arrange that? Coppola is adamant, no I did not. That water buffalo was going to be sacrificed anyway. All I did was just, well, you're going to do it, and these are all people I'm using in my film. I'll just film it. But he said something weird as well. He said, look, we didn't have any other standby buffaloes in case the scene went wrong. Why would you say that? Why would you say, no one actually asked you. Oh, did you actually have any other ones as well in case it went wrong? He supplied that information himself. This is a bit odd. To be perfectly honest with you, I think it was a real ritual, and he seized the moment. Well, this could work. This could work. A horrifying counter punch with the actual assassination of Colonel Kurtz with a scythe, with a big sort of Southeast Asian Buddhist scythe, to like intercut with the scythe, the real life scything to death of a water buffalo, which is why you can't watch the film. You can't ignore that sequence. So for Coppola to say, no, I don't agree with hurting any animals. You've had the puppy getting dragged rather viciously with a real yelp of pain. I don't like that scene either. But this, people call it a cow, it's a water buffalo, and it does get scythed to bits, and you see its eyes bug. And the more you watch the film, you know it's coming, the more horrific it genuinely is. But he then cuts the film together with, so Willard goes in, he takes out one of the guards at the temple, and then goes in, and you've got that line, of course, like here. Kurtz is just reading from his book, and he's making his own notes and all that. They train young men to drop fire from the sky on people, but they won't allow them to write fuck on the airplanes because it's obscene. I did misquote that there slightly, but you get the point. And then he turns around and Willard just comes up, whoosh, very stylistically shot, not very graphic at all, whereas the poor fucking buffalo gets hacked to bits in full vivid graphic display. But Marlon Brando just sort of waltzes around in the sweaty shadows, getting sliced, and a bit of blood, a tiny bit of blood at that. But what's great about that scene of Brando stands up, like he's taking these blows again, and he'll die, and then he'll just, his final words, the horror. And Willard will walk out to an entire army of what could become his acolytes. They could all fall for Willard at this stage. Willard now commands them. Think the Wild Bunch when they kill Mapache and they're in front of the entire Mexican army. Ernest Borgnine, William Holden, the other two, Warren Oates, and Ben Johnson. Wow, I got there. And they've killed Mapache, and they hold the entire Mexican army plus German consultants at bay. And it's a spellbinding moment. I've discussed it before. But Willard comes out. There's a fucking huge army there who've been celebrating the ritualistic killing, and now they know that he's killed their god, their deity. Willard comes out into this nocturnal miasma, and he's drenched in blood and sweat and river water and dripping camo paint. And he drops the side, and they all drop their weapons, M16s and shotguns and all sorts of stuff. Like, they drop them and they bow down to him, and then as he walks through them, they'll all stand up again as well. It's all, but they in reverence to him. And there's Sam Bottoms, there's Lance. Now, this is the other thing about that sequence with the water buffalo. The tribal people were going to do the Ithufuago tribe. I bet I've got that wrong. Ithufuago tribe were going to do it anyway. Well, they were. That's fine. Well, it's not fine, but it's what they do. Can't stop that. But they scoop the innards and stuff out of the water buffalo, and you don't see him parading around with it, but they've obviously got hold of it. In that sequence, you've got Sam Bottoms, who is there as well, and he's almost completely nude, and he's dancing around and all that, like, and there's blood on him, and he's interested. I find that troubling a bit. And but Willard will find, come on lads, we're going, and they'll get back on the boat, and they will turn around and go back down the river, and the film will end. It is an extraordinary movie. It's powerful on so many levels. It is an inventory of the shit and chaos and carnage of the Vietnam War. Politics is in there. It's in there, but only distilled through the grunts sort of attitudes and what's happening and the madness and the condemning of why they're there and what the shit they're going through is really meant to be. The fact that you will sanction the killing of an American soldier, Americans will sanction that killing. Well, they did. Shock horror, they did, and have done since as well. Just saying, folks. Just saying. Of course, that final sequence is also meant to cut with the film opens with the end, the beginning of the end, and it ends with the end of the end by the Doors, and of course the Doors, Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek. Oh Jesus, it's just outstanding. It works so beautifully with the film. The surrealism, the action, the size and scale of this movie is beyond belief. Anyone who goes like, the biggest films ever, it's Ben-Hur, it's Lawrence of Arabia, it's people say Gladiator, fucking CG everywhere, and Star Wars, fucking now it's CG fucking everywhere. Your big films, Bridge of Quai, so David Lean movies, huge on location, huge, fantastic cinematography. This film goes beyond all of that. Every single shot you can freeze a frame. It's a work of martial art. Hey, martial military art. It's wonderful. There's a few gaffes, of course. I mentioned a few about the insignia, the salute. You can see microphones and things reflected in people's sunglasses and what have you. You can see things like that. But overall, it's a magisterial exercise in pure cinematography. Vittorio Storaro did the cinematography for it, and it is majestic. It is unbelievably beautiful. It's captivating. It puts you in the jungle. To use that river as the conduit for the story. A lot of Vietnam movies have an element where there's a river involved in it. Rambo, Missing in Action, Uncommon Valor. Everything has a river at some point in it, The Last Hunter. Deer Hunter, for that matter. But the river becomes a character and it evolves as the film goes on, and our characters evolve as they get carried along that river. Helicopters crashed on the side, bodies on the banks, weird bridges, weird little American outposts in the blighted middle of a nightmarish nowhere. Folks, Apocalypse Now is Apocalypse Forever. You see our motto, Apocalypse Now, is scrawled on the wall on one of the stones at the Buddhist temple of Kurtz's compound. And who put that there? It's not said, but it's going to be clearly Dennis Hopper's photojournalist will have done that. Can you hand on a fraction, man? Can you? He's a genius. He's a genius. Don't these people? You can't kill him. He's happy with his people. He's happy with his people. Dennis Hopper. There's so many elements you can take from this movie. Martin Sheen's weirdly muted evolution as a character, and yet we're seeing it all play out, and his face, even blank and just staring, rain, sodden, tortured, and just an eye will just open and look, and he looks at the camera a lot as well, and you never feel uncomfortable. You never think he's looking at the camera. He's looking at Kurtz. He's looking at somebody. Martin Sheen's a great actor. I think he almost fucking died making this movie. Sweet Jesus. And the score and the use of the doors, the use of the firepower, the helicopters, the amount of hardware they got in there. And I keep coming down to the size and scale of this production. It's beyond parallel. I don't think there's another film out there which has such a size and scale and scope of real locations and an inordinate amount of extras used as well. It's mesmerising. My dad really wouldn't understand Apocalypse Now, whereas he would Platoon and Hamburger Hill. And he began to see, he educated me on the Napoleonic Wars and the Zulu Wars. I educated him about Vietnam and the American Indian Wars. Things he never took seriously. And said, what? But no, don't just believe, the pulp stuff that you see. A lot of great things, a lot of immense strategy and sort of battle practices took place in the American Indian Wars and in Vietnam. It's funny, American Indian Wars and Vietnam both were structured around fighting an indigenous enemy on their own turf and involved guerrilla warfare, excessive amount of scouting and skills out in the field. I'm not saying that the First World War, Napoleonic Wars, and World War II didn't have that, but they were much more large scale, involving really what we would term as traditional sort of warfare mentality. Whereas Vietnam, like the snake, it was an incredible era, a counterculture era. You think about the people that were sent over there were already turning against administrations and society, and you're putting weapons in their arms, and like you send them over to fight an enemy they didn't understand and didn't want to fight anyway. They'd rather, I don't want to get shot at, I want to get spaced off me tits. It's a time period, and the film captures it. The best quote really is from Coppola himself. It's not a film about Vietnam. It is Vietnam. And that's exactly what it is. It captures every angle of the glory, the vainglory, the madness, the insanity, the atrocity, the double standards, the lies, the deceit, the escapism of drugs, of drink, the absurdity of bringing Playboy playmates into a war zone. Everything is in there. It's a kaleidoscopic voyage into the heart of darkness. Orson Welles tried to film Conrad's Heart of Darkness and ended up doing Citizen Kane instead because it's fucking easier. Many people have tried to do Heart of Darkness. Coppola did it, but he sieved it through. He was refining it. What's the best way of doing this? Well, I'll tell it through the context of the Vietnam War. because it'll bring all of those narrative points and the thematic elements to a rip-roaring sort of vigour and visceral quality. Apocalypse Now, Apocalypse Forever. Cheers, folks. Folks, I have been always shall be Kilt-Man. Please, in the meantime and this ever madness, military maelstrom in between time, please keep it Kilted, keep it Celtic. And I am going to see you all laters. Never get out of the boat. Absolutely goddamn right. Unless you were going all the way. Kurtz got off the boat. He split from the entire fucking program. You all know someone that's done that. In whatever walk of life you are. I'm military. I've done a lot of things, seen a lot of things. I know people that have gone to Venus. Didn't land on a fraction. I know people have gone, long gone, in every walk of life. Everyone can do this, everyone can lose the plot, everyone can witness something, experience something, do something and then react to what they've done. We're all responsible for our actions, and yet sometimes we are compelled to do things which are beyond our control. But the point is, we should always be in control. War makes pawns of everybody. Suddenly you're not in control and you've got a weapon. It's a strange concept, isn't it? It really is. Anyway, that was an epic review. It wasn't even meant to be a review. It was just meant to be like a rediscovery of Apocalypse Now. But I think we've gone through it pretty well. Well, I should say, the best version, really speaking, is the theatrical cut. It is because you don't really need the French plantation sequence, the stealing of the surfboard. The surfboard bit is nice, it gives more depth to Martin Sheen's character. But I do like the final cut because it has the surfboard, which I enjoy, and I've learnt to accept this plantation sequence a bit more. For it's just stop with the actual sexual liaison with the girl. I don't think you need that. Just have Willard listening to all the other, all this D&B and Foo stuff, and why they're still there. It's giving him another idea as to what's happening in Vietnam, and there's still this. Everyone here is mad. Everyone's got an agenda. Everybody here is still clearly working from insanity and using unsane methods. Willard, do you think my methods are insane? Sir, I don't see any methods at all.